across the galaxy. This is where conspiracy on the wild side meets the perspective of a lifetime. This is the Free Zone with your host, Freeman.
Hello and welcome to the Free Zone. Well, we're looking at the idea of the magic of thought resonance. What happens when the world starts shifting to a point where all the facts are controlled and everybody's on the same plane of existence? I really remember the first time that I had been given a bird's eye view of the world through the World Wide Web. That was all the way back in 1999, November 30th. Indie media became a thing. And for the first time, local activists, just normal old people, could project themselves out into the world and share what was going on during certain events. And this event that happened was the Battle of Seattle back in 1999, as all 500,000 people gathered, or was it millions? I don't remember. I'll have to check Wikipedia, won't I? Gathered into the streets of Seattle to stand up against the WTO IMF global takeover. And I got to watch this whole event go from mission to mission to mission. And it astounded me. You know, this is the first time in the world, the first time in our history that we were able to get a bird's eye view. And it inspired me to go to the very next protest in Washington, D.C. for the WTO protest there and see what was happening there. And it turns out that that was my very first interview back in 2000 when I'm standing there in front of the White House watching 600 people get arrested for walking down the street. This was an amazing time as we started to realize that we had this power to share knowledge across the world about things that were going on that were misrepresented in mainstream media. And now we try to go back and gather that data. And how often do we find that Wikipedia pops up in front of us to tell us what actually happened? I mean, in the time of ultra-totalitarianism, the idea of speaking on knowledge that you have no knowledge of, speaking through opinions instead of facts. Well, what happens when those facts are controlled? Well, it takes a very special mind to get deep into this type of topic and to really immerse yourself into an investigation. You need time. You need solace. You need, well, a very special mind. And tonight we are speaking with that mind. His name is Cory Daniel, and he is host of PhoenixEnigma.com and has been an amazing guest here on the Free Zone numerous times. Welcome back, Cory, and I can't wait to hear what you got to say today.
Hey, thanks, Freeman, for having me on again, man. It's been a long time. We should do this more often. You were the first interview I ever did, ever. Right. And you know, it's just like it was just so cool to come on with you every time again. So I do appreciate it.
I know that feeling. I mean, that moment there at the DC protest was a big deal for me. I remember I got my amendments wrong as I'm here I am. I'm standing in Washington, D.C., 500,000 people around me. It's the day before the protest, and we're just walking from the central place where everybody gathered to the protest gathering place and back. It wasn't actually a protest. We were just kind of having a dry run, if you will. And as everyone was returning back to the central core of D.C. from the fairgrounds or wherever the main stage was going to be, these two lines of riot squads just stopped everyone in the middle of a block. And I happened to be on the other side of the riot squads, thank God, because the 600 people that were trapped there in the middle were summarily gathered together, zip-tied, and we're talking little boys, children, old ladies, Japanese tourists, anyone that happened to be in that spot at that moment was just corralled and shipped onto school buses.
Wow.
And bus after bus came by, and I'm on Indie Media talking about it just as this random character that was, you know, yelling at the riot squads about these people's rights, you know, like, what are you doing? they took all these people down to this dank underground parking lot, and they processed them one at a time. 600 people, $50 a head. They were charged for parading without a permit. Yes, that's right. The police made a quick 30 grand on that whole scenario, but if you didn't have the $50, you were taken to jail and had to wait for somebody to show up. They had no bathrooms, they had no water, they had no food. They were held there for 8 to 10 hours, just being processed one at a time. Wow. And I took a bunch of pictures of this. You know, I'm standing there with my, I don't even think we had digital cameras yet. I know that I had to go and get the pictures developed, you know, 1999, folks, you know, and I lost all those pictures. Like, I never actually got to see them. I took pictures of the children being hauled off, you know, everybody zip tied. It was very, very dramatic. And I never, ever found that roll of film. And I've always wondered if, like, the CIA or somebody came into my world and took it, or if I just misplaced it, or what happened to all of that. But, you know, getting this bird's eye view of the world, getting media out to the public, trying to get people to understand scenarios is getting so much more difficult because the facts are being laid out there in this authoritarian way. So if I say to somebody that when I was watching the shock and awe report, you know, when we were taking on Baghdad, and they used the mother of all bombs to do this, and then I speak of the occult nature of that, shock and awe, relating to the feminine goddess Shekinah, and using the mother of all bombs to take down Nebuchadnezzar, which was Saddam Hussein. He claimed to be Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated, using the Moab. The mother of all bombs. Well, it was the Moabites that was in battle with Nebuchadnezzar in the Babylonian times. And so the symbolism was all there. But me, you know, this was in the 90s, and all I had were the news articles. All I had was the television to tell me what, you know, I could get. And, you know, I would feel like I'd get a little better source from like C-SPAN, where it seemed more open source situation than I did from any of the others. But then I start talking about this in the future, now that the World Wide Web exists, and people go and they Google mother of all bombs, Moab, and it states that the Moab wasn't used until years later. And so then everybody says, well, you're wrong. And I'm like, but I lived through it. You know, this is from memory. This is not, you know, this is like reports. Now, maybe the media was lying to me. Maybe they only used the word Moab. Maybe they never used the bomb. Maybe they just needed it in the magical spell that was the headline. But it happened. I was there. You know what I mean?
Maybe they're even crafting reality with the sorcery of words. And then there's always, I don't want to necessarily go here, there's another show entirely, but there's the Mandela effect. I know I've heard you do amazing shows on that as well. There's just so much. We live in a time where anything that you can think of is not only possible, but partially provable. It's scary. You know, you mentioned a minute ago about it's getting so hard to know who to trust with all this, you know, getting the information out there with the mainstream media doing what it's doing, right? It's, you know, MSNBC, ABC, CNN, Fox, on all sides. The mainstream corporate media dominates absolutely everything, and they script the narrative to a T, and it's surgically deployed like a drone missile on time within algorithms and pushed through the technocracy onto the American people. And social media picks it up, and social media, you know, it's like Q social media now, right? And YouTube, Google, Facebook, Twitter, their algorithms kick in, and everything gets pushed out further in specific algorithms, shutting down certain voices and pushing other ones up. So that's what we're against. That's the battlefield that we're currently in. And I hate to say it, but it's if you love them or if you hate them, we're in an information war, just like Alex Jones says, and we have been since the 50s. This has been coming at us since the 50s. It's just getting more sophisticated with the technology. And I'll tell you on the other side of that, and this came to me this week. We spoke earlier about this, but it's relevant because it's a fresh realization for me. I have only had a Twitter account for 4 days. 4 days. And thank God that I haven't had it all these years. I wouldn't have been as productive. I may have not had the strength or wisdom to avoid all the bullshit that people get sucked into. I have never seen such a low common denominator of human behavior in my life. I'm sure these people actually kiss their mothers and, they're good people and they would save kittens that were drowning. But when they get on Twitter, I don't know what happens to people. They turn into lunatics. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I've been covering this Isaac Cappy story. I'm one of the primary people doing the footwork here in Arizona, doing interviews with people that were actually there. And I've been coming on the last 4 days, explaining what I've been seeing, what I've been hearing, the firsthand accounts. I'm bringing this to people via my platform, thephoenixenigma.com, and my YouTube channel. And I am getting people coming out of the woodwork calling me deep state, calling me a liar, calling me everything except for what I am. And we're fighting that. And there are black hats out there. There are secret ops out there. The CIA has a bank of people that sit in a room and do nothing but pump disinformation and garbage into the system, trying to convolute it, creating fake handles and fake personalities and profiles, and butting up to people and gleaning information. So that's the other side of it that we're fighting as well. I've spoken absolute truth about what I've seen for 3 days now, and I got people misquoting me, taking stuff out of context, calling me the enemy. It's highly effective from their standpoint, and they're continuing to script the narrative, and I believe they have the upper hand here. I believe they really do have the upper hand. We're talking about Wikipedia in just a little bit, and that ties in this as well. They not only have the actual ability to script this from the beginning with the media, they have the ability, the kinetic ability to guide it and control it and push it through social media as it's being developed. And then they got the final say, which is the collective archives known as Wikipedia, where they solidify it into black and white on your screen, and it becomes history. That's what we're up against, Freeman.
Without a doubt. And isn't it bizarre that we don't find competing platforms on all of those, from Twitter to... Now, Twitter, I've always called the infinite bathroom wall. So, yeah, I agree with you there, 100%. It's probably maybe worse than YouTube comments. I'm not sure. They're pretty close. But, when we look at Twitter, Facebook, Google, and Wikipedia, there should be hundreds of competing platforms for these these purposes, social media and stuff, and no one ever questioned why there wasn't, and why you could suddenly use your Facebook account to be a member of whatever. It's like, oh, well, sign up with your Facebook account or sign up with your Google account. And no competing platforms in any of these scenarios. And if they are, of course, they're not getting the algorithm, like you're saying, on the search engines. It doesn't matter which one you look into. As I was going to get some data for the Seattle protests, because, space-time is not my friend. I'm on Bing, and I search the Seattle protest, and I get Wikipedia as my first, and then second and third selection for what's. So, we got to sit here and question why there aren't a number of us to do this, and then why we can't get people into it as well, because, we're watching when this YouTube censorship, I'm a part of all of that. Yep. I mean, I don't bitch about it, but they did the same thing to me. They did to everybody else and said, hey, all your content isn't actually yours, so we're not going to give you any more Google ads. That happened. I got the strikes when everybody else got the strikes, and they were going to take down Freedom TV, the longest running talk show on YouTube, and they were just going to delete it. That's another part of this puzzle, just being able to just say, yeah, we don't agree with you. Google or PayPal can just shut you off, and say, we don't agree with any of this.
Well, this YouTube was deployed. If anyone out there believes YouTube is a startup company, you know, that they just got it up and it grew into what it is arbitrarily and became what it is through, you know, the economy and the free market, they need to pull their head out of their ass. It was absolutely designed to do exactly what it did, to offer a platform. And to use an analogy, it's like them throwing a big party, and it's all the free food and drink you want, and everyone's invited, and everyone can come, and you give you absolutely everything for free. It was the absolute dream that anybody could show up to YouTube, start up anything, cost you absolutely nothing, and all you needed was your cell phone, which you already had in your hand. And that's, you know, that's suspicious, because when something is free, you are the product. You are the product in this world. Your Google email is free because they scan it for words and they sell it. You know, they sell it. Everyone knows that. You know, your vaccines are free. Why? Well, you know, your fluoride in your water is free. Why? Well, you know, figure it out. When you're given a platform on YouTube and it's bigger and better than anything else, and they're getting tax breaks and they're making deals. I mean, we know they're making deals with the government. It's out in the open, right? We know the NSA has deals. There's been articles and reporters have talked about it. Same with Facebook and all the data that they can glean. It was consolidated a few years back. They began it, and they started getting everyone else off all the other platforms. They took over control. YouTube, and it still is. As much as everybody hates it, nobody goes to DLive, relatively speaking. Nobody goes over to the other platforms. You know, Steam is there, Twitch is there, but it ain't like YouTube, because I think YouTube has that backing, and it is a control mechanism. But yeah, we're there. We're there now, and we are all beholden to YouTube at this point, and they are deciding this narrative. And it's scary, you know. People know the solution is everyone boycott YouTube and go to DLive or Twitch or pick another one. We could end it tomorrow if we all got together and did it. But you know, what percentage of the U.S. population do you think is actually enlightened, Freeman? I mean, how many of us out there do you think there are that are awakened, that are woke, that understand what's going on to know to do this?
That was definitely something I was thinking about as I was watching one of your earlier interviews, not even that long ago. I think it was just a very current interview. And the host was asking you about Bohemian Grove. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, that was kind of like, oh, wow, right. People still need to, you know, there's so much to catch up on that, you know, we've become to think, and I hate to call it, but I will, Alex Jones syndrome. Where we, you know, everything's a conspiracy and we're following every thread, but so many people, yes, there's not many, and we feel like the World Wide Web is the world. Mm-hmm. And like everybody must be on the web, right?
No, they're not.
Even the people that are on the web stick to the power three. You know, they go to their Twitter, they find an interesting story, they then Google it, and they get shown the YouTube video. You know, it's just like endless. I can't get people to go to my website to save my life. You know, that's why I still put things on YouTube, because I'm not getting anything from putting it on YouTube. But, you know, I have a huge audience that won't come to the website. So,
you know, you mentioned that to me about a year ago when you and I were talking. And I thought that's weird, because I put all my stuff on my, you know, that's my repository for all my articles and my research. You can go there and look it up. It's all there, open to the public, transparent. And you're right. I started paying, it was you that told me that. And I was like, so I downloaded Google Analytics. I started keeping an eye on it. And, you know, yesterday I had 532 people on my website, which isn't bad. But with the exposure I've been getting on this Cappy thing, you would think it would be thousands and thousands and thousands.
How many views do you have on the video?
Thousands. I mean, yeah. I got 12,000 on one and 8 on another 7. And I was on Lift the Veil yesterday. I think he's already got 13,000 as of this morning.
Right.
Yeah. No one goes to the website. I got people calling me saying, do you have a website? Maybe you should get a website, man. You
know, after 14 years, I'm still told that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Well, what's your website? You know, it makes me want to just like...
You and I are researchers, you know. I mean, I know how to get on there and you know, manipulate a search engine and track something down within 5 seconds, but a lot of people don't, you know. and they just consume material in the manner which they've been conditioned and trained to do so, and that's what we're up against. It's a whole machine. And Wikipedia, I wrote an article about 2 weeks ago now, I guess it was, about Wikipedia, because I used to practice the occult. I used to be a practicing witch, for better, lack of better words, and I was good at it. I was really, really, really good at it. I understood it. I understood the mechanics of it, the physics of it. I no longer practice. I am an occultist now. I study the occult and the scholastic side of it, the history of it, all that stuff. I no longer practice the occult. It's just not healthy, in my opinion, at this point. I've grown through it. But I've taken all that knowledge and I have put it into, it's almost a road that I had to walk to be there, like Dante's Inferno. You had to go through it to understand it. And then you come out the other side and you're like, now I'm equipped to fight it. That's exactly my history. And when I look at Wikipedia, it looks to me to be a grimoire. It looks to me to be sorcery, final sorcery, where they solidify into history. Because if you put something on Wikipedia and say, oh, this is how it happened, people say, nah, I looked that up. It's on Wikipedia. It has to be true. And no one thinks that, what's the politics behind this site? How did it come about? Why is it everywhere? Why every time you Google anything, does Wikipedia pop up first? No one's questioning any of that. But they're scripting the narrative. They are scripting reality. When you look at something and you read it on the internet or wherever, it goes into your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And all day long, as you and I are talking right now even, your conscious mind is pulling for reference on everything you've ever done, seen, or heard from your subconscious mind. And it is generating a reality second by second, millisecond by millisecond even. And that is the filter that is tempering every word that you're hearing from my mouth now. If you can control that programming of the subconscious and the conscious at the same time with a collective history that's out there for everybody and edit it at will for the entire world to see, that is some serious power. That is some serious sorcery going on there. That's what it is.
No doubt.
The Bible says somewhere in there that it speaks, I think it's in Revelations, it speaks to the future where something will happen and the world will know in the blink of an eye. And hell, 30 years ago, no one knew what that meant. How is everyone going to know across the world in the blink of an eye? Now we know. It's the internet.
Yes. And so we have this World Wide Web given to us by CERN, and it is just a mere fraction of the internet. And of course, we often confuse the internet with the World Wide Web, but the World Wide Web's just a bubble inside of the internet. And then we think we have the whole world on the World Wide Web paying attention and following things, but it's actually just, those that can afford it. And then, of course, they are working there again when you were talking about giving away free things and how hard they were working to get Wi-Fi to Africans, that speaks to the grimoire magical powers of what you're saying. They're giving it to destitute people. What do they need the World Wide Web for? But yet there's a massive campaign to make sure it reaches everybody on the planet. But yet, again, it's a small portion of the internet. And then those few people that are on the World Wide Web, which, is hundreds of millions, but definitely not, a billion people maybe, maybe 7. Anyway, it's not as many, it's not the world, that's for sure. We end up where they're only cycling through these major platforms. And in the same way, I thought the same thing with Facebook. I watched the movie even to try and see where Zuckerberg got the money because there wasn't any ads on Facebook. There wasn't any revenue on Facebook.
Mhm.
How was this thing existing? And here I was, starting my own web-based thing. And I started my own social network called the Friendship Agenda. And one person would show up a day. It was like this party where you couldn't get everyone to stay. And no one came, you know what I mean? But I watched the movie about Facebook to see where Zuckerberg got paid. And of course, they get this mysterious check that no one ever explains. So yes, we have these single non-competing platforms. There aren't other social networks that are taking up this form. And we have the thought resonance going on. That's really what you're talking about here, is the magic of thought resonance and bringing about this singular view of history, which then will create our future.
Yeah, and we've always had this thought resonance. It's manifesting itself today, and it's on steroids with the technocracy that we deal with, that we're all connected with. But back in the day, think about it. You had, the king would march down the countryside, and they would have banners, and those banners had symbols on them. And those symbols generated specific feelings in people that elicited emotion.
Hitler,
pride, fear, whatever, right?
Right. I mean, let's throw in Hitler, because he was practicing the occult, and he intentionally had people that would design every aspect, from the lights that shone to the reds and the blacks. Every part of that was a magical act to do exactly what you're saying, impart this feeling, this emotion, and religious frenzy at his rallies. So yes, and then the kings of old and all of that. But I'm bringing in Hitler because he shows us openly that this was a cult practice.
Oh yeah. It's always been there, and we've had it. Churches. You got the cross. You got your symbols everywhere, and that was a primitive form of thought resonance. And then we have it in our holidays. And granted, we're human beings. We're on this planet, or flat Earth. I don't want to get into there, but we're at where we're at, and things are cycling the way that they are. And we have rhythms and algorithms in our body, biological ones. And we get together on certain holidays, and we all collectively behave a certain way, right? Christmas, the thought resonance. People get a little bit nicer. Crime goes down, right? People generally donate more. We think about our fellow human beings and give more food between Thanksgiving and Christmas, right? And then we have thought resonance on Valentine's Day, and 9 months later, more babies are born, on and on. We have it with our holidays. That's been a form forever as well. When radio came about and somebody figured out the Prince of the Power of the Air, that they could actually transmit, thoughts, not from a podium out to a town standing on a back of a train somewhere when you're politicking, but actually put it on a radio and broadcast it out. That's magic. And now you got thought resonance, or soft propaganda, or coercion, or whatever you want to call it, on a mass basis. And then as soon as television came around, tele in the ear, vision with the eyes, television, you have a dual method of thought resonance, of propaganda. And now we have the internet, where it's completely engaged, and you allow people to dump their own ego into it. Last night, someone jumped on after I was on with Lift the Veil, and they made a comment, you're a liar, you this and you that, and you said this and this. And I came back and I said, I did not say that. I'm not a liar. Go back and watch my video here. Here's what I said. But at this point, the guy now has his ego involved, and he's no longer talking about the topic. He's talking about himself, and now he's got to defend himself, his ego, because it never was about the point that I brought up. It was about being right. So you have people who have now instilled and invested their own ego in it at the same time. You not only have resonance, but you have participation at this point. And you have hyper narcissism, that's not a word, hyper narcissism. It is a perfect demonic formula to get people engaged and, to fall eventually. The points get lost in all this BS. You know, very, very shortly in the comment section, it turned from understanding what happened to defending and attacking everybody because of ego. And I think it is by design. I think there are players out there, like I said, sitting in banks of rooms in the CIA, FBI, pick a 3-letter alphabet agency, disinformation agents out there that just pump this crap out. But yeah, it's
and you hardly even need them. Because
right.
They are participating. People are participating and want their ego out there. I know exactly what you're talking about in the attacks. And, you know, the one thing that clued me in there, too, is when I saw all the attacks on me and all the misrepresentation of what I said or anything, you realize that they're doing that to everybody. Right? So if you're marked as a shill, let's say Zechariah Sitchin, you know, just go off board. And we're talking about ancient Anunnaki and all of that and the gods and how they built civilization and cloning and everything else. And then one person comes out and says, no, that's debunked. And then everybody on the planet can just go look that up and say, oh, no, he's been debunked. And I don't need to believe any of that.
Yeah.
I need to look at it.
Yeah. Oh, and if it goes on CNN and CNN says it, whether it's true or not, you know, I mean, it is what it is. And then they go to Wikipedia, or they go to Snopes, or they go to PolitiFact, or whatever you're going to go to. And yeah, all you got to do is get a couple people they don't have to be right. They just have to be there long enough. And everyone will assume that they're legitimate because they've been there long enough. You know, well, I got something to say, man. The devil's been there longer than anyone. You know, just because you're there for a while doesn't mean that it's legit and it's bona fide. It could be a very bad thing still. But I love when people come at me and they say, you know, when I'm in some Facebook chat with someone and they say, go to Snopes and look it up. I mean, I mean, what do you do at that point? You know, you're talking to a flipping retard. They don't even know the lay of the battleground at that point. It's scary.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
And that's what we're up against.
I saw when they were covering Alex Jones's deposition, and CNN covering it, and their announcement was, liar Alex Jones goes into deposition. You know, that was the news. Like, they opened with that. Liar Alex Jones, professional liar Alex Jones. You can go look this up. It's crazy. And it kind of brought me to the other side of this puzzle, where everything that you say can and will be used against you, which is another kind of scary part of the World Wide Web, because every single thing you do is data-based. You know, sheets upon sheets upon sheets of data going together from Google and everywhere else. And, you know, what happens when something you said in 2009 can be pulled out and used against you, and, you know, you don't remember a thing.
Yeah, or it's taken out of context,
Yes.
you know, or God forbid you changed your mind.
Right.
You know, maybe you were for abortion back then, and you got a little older and wiser, and you kind of know a couple people who went through it, and you see how they're traumatized, and maybe they have some issues that aren't resolved from it, and there's some depression, and you realize, you know what, everyone who did that, God, 10 years later, they still have issues. And you start to think about it, and you start to value life a little bit more. And you know, the hustle and bustle of life isn't important, and you think, you know what, a family would be great. And in hindsight, you think, you know, I think I'm pro-life at this point. I actually understand the value of that. And you change your mind. And they say, oh, 10 years ago, you said you're all for abortion. Well, yeah, I changed my mind, man. You know, I can do that. You know? So, I don't know. I mean, how do you fight this, Freeman? How do we stay on it? I mean, how do you fight this sorcery when the sorcery isn't coming at us externally? It's in the very programs you and I are using right now to record this, you know?
Yes.
How do we combat this is the question.
Yeah.
Do we deny it? Do we just, like I always say, you know, get a 6-pack of beer and go to your neighbor's house and, you know, look at the stars and get a campfire out in the front yard and talk about life with each other and enjoy your family more and unplug and just, you know, ignore it?
Yeah, see, that is the problem with what I'm going to now term Alex Jones syndrome. When you start to recognize that there is a plot behind everything, and then how do you live? How do you, so many of my listeners, they write me with these thoughts as well. Like, how do we find happiness? How do we, coexist in a world that's like this? And strangely enough, in the time of this unity of the World Wide Web, where the whole world gets their knowledge in an instant, we all feel so isolated. It's such a paradox of where we're at, because everybody I know says I can't find anyone to talk to about the information that I study or that I've learned or anything. Nobody wants to hear it. And that's what really founded the friendship agenda as we traveled around in the school bus, because people came from all around the town to meet up with me. And then, here was a whole collective of people, like 20, 30 people that didn't know one another, but had gathered around me. And I said, well, here are all the people that you have been looking for to talk to. So there are things like that we could do, where we draw people more together in these type of communities. But I know how difficult it is. I'm a stranger in a strange land right now. I don't know anyone here. I don't know how to communicate with these people.
Well, I go to a coffee shop, and I just sit there and I'm working on something or writing an article or doing whatever. And I listen. I'm always listening. And I hear people talking about the Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals, and what so-and-so did and how he caught the ball, what his career's going to do, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And I tune that out. And I look at some girls are going on about a relationship, I'm like, okay, petty talk about a relationship. And you got somebody, no one's discussing this stuff out in public. And I'm isolated personally in the fact that, talking about normal life bores the hell out of me.
Oh God, yes.
You and I understand, and you and I and everyone listening to this, and probably a million others, understand what's out there. We understand the sorcery taking place. We understand all these issues. There are black hats and white hats. There are wars within wars, and it's a multi-layered world that we live in. There are people doing secret operations. There were books written in the 1800s talking about starting World War I and II, and starting Israel where it's at now. This has been laid out for over 120 years now, what we're going through today. So while everyone was back in the day minding their own business, tending the farms in their fields and going to church and being happy, this stuff was already being planned and plotted against the world for long-term 60, 100-year plans. And the question is, do we go and be happy and ignore it and get ourselves corralled in like a bunch of cattle, or do we fight it? I don't know. I don't pretend to understand the answer. I mean, I'm just pointing out the obvious here, and I'll tell you what else. It's a very strange phenomenon. I'm a tour guide, and it's my main job, and I take people out and to the Grand Canyon and Sedona and all over the state of Arizona. I talk to a lot of people. And whenever topics like this come up, certain people are receptive, probably 5, 10%. And the rest of them, it's almost like, and I'm being serious here, it's almost like there's a programming, and let me know if you've seen this too, to where you'll start saying something about Bilderberg or Federal Reserve, and you can see it in their eyes. Something will click. They'll shut down. They'll even turn their head, and they'll stop paying attention, and they do it subconsciously. It's not that they're being rude. They just click off, and their mind goes somewhere else instantaneously, like it's been programmed. It's the weirdest thing.
It's so true. It's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's possible we could form a force of Uber drivers and just start laying knowledge on all the norms out there. I know that happens with some friends of mine that Uber, and they're actually asked to drive around more just to keep talking. So they're actually getting a little extra income. Just
we'll call it we'll call it red pill taxi, man.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's funny.
But it is important to get out there, and that's part of what kind of guided me into being here, is that I wanted to live life. So even as I started to learn I awoke in 91, 93, around that era, and started to realize this plan, up to the point of 99 and the protest, and living through Waco and those things, and being able to actually see and watch everything that was going on during these scenarios. Then I would get out there into the world and wander around and tell people these stories. And I always needed a method of getting in with the group. So I had what I would call road trades. I sold juggling sticks and I sold lighter leashes, and these were just simple ways for me to weasel my way into a conversation, really. It gave me an excuse to go in to talk to strangers. And conversation was never about juggling sticks or lighter leashes, you know what I mean? And then this showed me, as I kept going, a miraculous existence that was going on, because I kept getting guided not only to people and things that I needed, but to information. I bet you feel that way. Like the information is seeking you out, and you've got this weird vessel just waiting for it. It's like you want to eat it up and kind of dig deep into Cappy or Nipsey Russell, and they capture your imagination while you start to suss it out. I know that's what happened to me with Anna Nicole when I was digging into that. I didn't mean to be telling that story. I didn't even know anything about what was going to come of the Anna Nicole story, but it grabbed me and it wouldn't let me go. And I had the time and the wherewithal to dig in. I could sit there and watch the entire court case all day. I didn't have a job. And so you now have that devotion, and you're getting impounded with information in that way as well. So I find that great.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's the big one, and you're right. This information does seek you out. We all have our own little gifts in this world. You're a communicator. You're easy to talk to. You understand people, and more importantly, you listen to them and you think about and process what they're saying, and then you move forward with it. From what I can tell, that's your gift, and it's a very powerful one. I have pattern recognition, and I'm aware that I recognize patterns. And I have another gift of tenacity. What I lack in everything else in my life, I make up for in tenacity. And those two things together, when I birthed my YouTube channel, when the whole Las Vegas shooting happened, people were talking about there were shooters on the ground. People were winding up dead who were witnesses. I guess the bellman wound up dead. On and on. The helicopters, there was a prince of Saudi Arabia there. There was all this speculation, and Goodman was going off, and we had all these people really, really investigating this. And I'm looking and looking and looking at this stuff, and I saw another angle, right? I saw something else there, and I dove into that, and I still can't explain it, man. Have you and I gone over this before? We haven't. And this does tie into Wikipedia, because once again, the official thing. No. I'm just going to read one short paragraph here, because this is the first paragraph for Wikipedia. You type in the Las Vegas shooting event. It says, on the night of October 1st, 2017, Stephen Paddock opened fire on a crowd of concert goers on the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival on the Las Vegas Strip in Nevada. He killed 58 people, wounded 422, and the panic brought on the injury of 851. Paddock, 64-year-old man from Mesquite, Nevada, fired more than 1,000 or 1,100 rounds from his suite in 32nd floor, Mandalay Bay. The shooting occurred between 10:05 and 10:15. About an hour later, Paddock was found dead in his room of self-inflicted gunshot wound. His motive remains undetermined. Okay, there it is. Wikipedia said it. It must be true. They told you when it happened. They told you how it happened. They told you why it happened. They told you he's dead. They told you they really don't understand it. And that's it, right? That's the official Wikipedia. Signed, sealed, delivered, move on. Well, I start researching this thing, and I've branded myself as a self-described. There wasn't a word for what I was doing, so I made one up, a term. And I call myself a political occultist. I take my knowledge of the occult and I apply it to political events. Trump's speeches, you name it. Any big thing that's going on, Hillary and Bill Clinton's 13 city tour, you can go all the way down. You can go with the dates and the moon phases, and you see what I call ritual mechanics everywhere throughout these events. And this one here was the big one, man. I call this 9/11 2.0. And I'm just going to go through a few things with you here concerning this. I'm going to tell you what's not in the Wikipedia page, okay? Route 91 Harvest Festival. 9 + 1 is 10. It occurred on the harvest moon, right? Where 58 people were harvested. It occurred at the beginning of the month, right? Of the 10th month on October 1st, 2017. 10 October, 1st is 10 backwards or mirrored. And 2017, 2 + 1 + 7 is 10. You got 3 10s right there, right? You had 59 people died during the shooting, including Paddock, and 851 injured for a total of 910. 9 + 1 is 10, okay? On October 1st, there are 91 days left in the year. 9 + 1 is 10. It happened on the 10th day of Muharram. And if you know your Arabic calendar, Muharram, the 10th day of Muharram is known as the day of Ashura. And that is the 10th day of the most holy year. The funny thing is when you line up the Gregorian calendar with the Islamic calendar, they don't have the same amount of days, so it floats. So those holidays are always moving every year in a different location. Back, it would have taken 1,400 years, I think I calculated at the time, for it to line up on that day again. The 10th day of Muharram, the day of Ashura, is the day. And that's the day of bloodletting, by the way, in there. When did it happen? Like I said, October 1st, 2017, 10, 10, 10, 3 sets of 10. It happened between 10:05 and 10:15. For exactly 10 minutes, the shooting happened. Okay? It was we talked about that right there. Where? It happened in Nevada. Nevada was ratified in 1864. 1 + 8 + 6 + 4 is 19. 1 + 9 is 10. 2017, 10. Luxor Hotel, 10 letters. The zip code, 89119. As of 28, 2 + 8 is 10. Get this. The Luxor Hotel has 4,407 rooms, 442 of which are suites. That's exactly 10.02% of the rooms in the Luxor Hotel are suites. Every main attraction, the Bodies, the Titanic, the Blue Man Show, inside the Luxor is open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 32nd floor in Gematria comes out to 91, right? You go down the Pyramid of Kukulkan in Mexico, right? That's a pyramid. Keep in mind, this shooting, the sacrifice happened in front of the Luxor Pyramid in Las Vegas, which, by the way, has the brightest light on planet Earth emanating from it every night shooting into the heavens, okay? That's a fact. The brightest light on Earth is in Las Vegas, Nevada, and gets turned on every night shooting out of the Luxor Hotel where this sacrifice took place on 10/10 or 10/01 of 17. The Pyramid of Kukulkan in Mexico has 4 sides with 91 steps each. It was Route 91 Harvest Festival, right? Stephen Paddock was 64 years old. 6 + 4 is 10. Aaron Rouse, 10 letters. Jason Aldean, an open third-degree Freemason, was performing on the third night between 10:05 and 10:10. And on Jason Aldean's left arm, he has a black Saturn, a tattoo of a black Saturn on his left arm, just below the shoulder there. Below that is a tattoo of a jack and an ace, or a 10 and a 1. Jason Aldean, who was on stage when the shooting happened, had the date of the shooting under a black sun of Saturn tattooed on his left arm. And he is a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason. Okay, I could go on for 3 hours on this. All right, I'll stop there, but you get the point.
Yes.
Yeah, this is ritual mechanics. It's absolutely ritual mechanics. And I look at the spiritual side of it. Something or somebody, either on this side or the other side, put this together, and this went down in a certain way to generate this stuff. Now, nothing I just told you is openly talked about in Wikipedia. They have all these dates in there. Everything I told you, you can go down there and you can read it all. It's all there, but it's all coded. Okay, it's all completely coded. And if you know what you're looking for when you read Wikipedia, you can read that thing like a grimoire. If Joe Blow Six-Pack out there gets on and reads the Wikipedia page for the Las Vegas shooting, they're going to read one thing. If an occultist gets on there, or a Freemason, or somebody from Yale who helped plan this thing, or whatever, I'm just throwing something out there, you know what I mean? If someone who helped plan this thing gets on there, if they know what they're looking for, they can read the codes and the occultism between it. And there's probably even more that I'm not picking up, you know? So it's... I remember to show how this gets translated into the news cycles. I don't know if you remember, but type into your browser, if you got it open right there, 72 minutes of terror. 72 minutes of terror. And it's going to pop up headline after headline after headline of the Las Vegas shooting. That went out there over and over and over and over again. And that's the first time I really noticed the number 72. And 72 is considered in the occult, and you probably know this, preaching to the choir here, but it's considered the number of Earth. Earth is 72% water. The human body is 72% water. Humans are comfortable at 72 degrees. The average lifespan is 72 years. We get 72 heartbeats per minute. There's 72 years and 1 degree of precession, and that's the life duration of the human ovula in a woman, right? Jesus died for 72 hours. He sent forth 72 apostles in the book of Luke, right? Well, when you read 72 minutes of terror, you take 7 plus 2, you get 9. 7 times 2, you get 14. 9 plus 14 is 23. That's how many guns he had. 23 mirrored is 32. He had 23 guns on the 32nd floor. How do you know? And is it a coincidence that every single headline across the nation for a week straight ran with the headline 72 minutes of terror? Or were they solidifying into the public psyche, the conscious and the subconscious, the ritual mechanics of the sacrifice that they just did, that they just executed? And this ritual, this open public ritual sacrifice, was simply the actual action of the spell, and the spell is continuing to this day. They're utilizing that collective energy of terror and loss and pain and suffering, and they're harnessing it, and they're focusing it for anti-gun legislation, or to put in more censors in the public, or to take away more rights, or to keep everybody in a perpetual state of paralysis. You know, I don't think there's just one goal. People like to think, well, they pulled off the shooting because they want to take away guns. Maybe, probably. But chances are there were quite a few reasons why they pulled this off, you know. It's not a secret that the CEO, I think it's James R. McMurr, his name is, sold off 85% of his stocks 15 days personal stock prior to this shooting. Right, 85%. Dude, the CEO and owner of a company does not sell off 85% of their stock, because you're gonna cause a flash sale and you're gonna go down to nothing overnight. You're gonna kill your company. But he did. He sold it off, and then the shooting happened. Stocks dropped. He bought everything back again, pennies on the dollar. George Soros bought, I think it was $10 million in put options on the MGM. Okay, so there's a lot going on here behind the scenes that Wikipedia is not telling you. You know, but they are writing the ritual mechanics. And I think why these numbers are so important is because you, I, and every other occultist out there know, have been studying this for 20 years, that numbers represent frequencies. They represent concepts on the other side. Pythagoras said all is number. And if you can script the numbers that people are reading and consuming, you're literally scripting reality at a certain level of subconscious. And I think that's the power of these numbers and these headlines. Go through you can go through 9/11, right? Go through 9/11 with the same entire thing, and you get a different set of numbers that's resonating for whatever reason. You know, you got and you may have heard these prior, but 9/11 happened on 9/11. 9 plus 1 plus 1 is 11. The Twin Towers looked like an 11. Flight 11 was the first plane to hit the towers. Flight 11 had 11 crew members. Each twin tower had 110 stories. Drop the 0, which is a placeholder, you have 11. New York was the 11th state to be ratified into the Union. September 11th, the 254th day of the year. 2 plus 5 plus 4 is 11. On September 11th, there are 111 days left in the year. The Pentagon has 11 letters. Shanksville has 11 letters. It goes on and on and on. The Pentagon was hit by Flight 77. The Pentagon is 77 feet high. The Pentagon sits on the 77th meridian west. Early that morning, before the missile hit it, well, it was a missile, but the scripting is it was a plane. An EB-4 flew over with the call sign of Venus 77. Pentagon has 5 sides, it's 5 stories high, and it's 5 layers deep. Okay? That's 5 times 5 times 5. 125. 125 people died in the attack at the Pentagon. 555 feet is the height of the Washington Monument right across the river, which towers over the Pentagon. Ritual mechanics, ritual scripting. That's what this is. There's a whole level to this stuff that is being put into our conscious and subconscious, whether people realize it or not. They're participating in these events by consuming the news on TV and on Wikipedia. You know, they're consuming it in real time on social media, and social media allows them to engage their own ego, which engages their emotion. And that's what they want. That's the power. It's the emotion, which is the gasoline for ritual. And anyone who practices witchcraft can tell you, you have to work yourself up. Your mind gets the thought. You work yourself up emotionally. You have chemicals releasing into your body, making you feel certain things. And that is the gasoline. That is the go juice for any ritual. And if they can get you whipped up emotionally, they can begin to harvest that. And I don't pretend to understand the mechanism for that harvesting, but I believe that's what, I really do believe that that is what memorials are for. I believe that when they blow up the Twin Towers and they put a memorial there and people come there 24/7, 365 days a year, and they start crying and they get emotional and they manifest thoughts about their dead relatives or the dead people, they start feeling things. I believe there is a mechanism there to harvest that energy. I think that's what this is about. So that's my take on all this, Freeman. Yeah, this is what I do. And this is what I try to get out there, try to make people understand that this is what's going on behind the headlines, encoded and embedded within Wikipedia. So
yeah, well, what I would see is a collective of people that would say this is impossible to set up. There's no way that you could have all those 10 show up and have that orchestrated. But now let's go ahead and touch on magic and the occult, and even modern physics, quantum physics, and the observer, right?
Yep.
So if humanity manifests reality and you can program the manifest reality into that humanity, then you manifest the reality that you want, right?
that's it.
You're programming through your grimoire.
Yep.
So it doesn't even require an ancient AI to orchestrate all of those 10 factors to come together, because our reality is far more malleable than we realize. And these sorcerers have gained control through television, radio, and all the methods that we just discussed, on up to Wikipedia, Facebook, and Twitter, and Google, YouTube, are able to then inject into us concepts and things that we don't even realize our brain is manifesting. And then we can actually manifest that future and that reality, and it doesn't require a handler for every 10 to show up, because we actually are proving the manifest power of humanity right here.
Yeah, and we're being hijacked. We're being hijacked and co-opted, unbeknownst and against our will, to participate in these public rituals, and they're utilizing media to do it. I wrote a 2-page article. When did I write this here? July 6th of 2018. It's called The Anatomy of Ritual Magic, Part 1, Physics, and Part 2, Ritual Construction. And I go through and explain how physics are intertwined with this. I explain, you know, it's basic. It's 101. It's written for, you know, the layman to come on there, the person who's used to watching football and, you know, bowling and doesn't, you know, the average person who doesn't study the stuff. It'll blow their mind. Talks about light, color. You know, I explain how light works and what light is and what it isn't, vibration. I go through organization of information, directed thought, and intent. You know, all of it. And the 7 hermetic principles, all that stuff. And the information's out there, and it's just like you said, it's ancient technology, it's ancient AI. It's a system of understanding and applying physics, and more importantly, psychology. You know, people wonder how Hitler was such a good speaker, right? And he was. It was like people were in a trance, right? And then you start to notice something.
When I compare him to Trump, because they don't realize who Hitler was back then, and he was, you know, he was like the Alex Jones of his time, you know, but running for president. So,
yeah.
You know, he had a powerful voice. He spoke to the people, and he felt like a man of the people, to the people. You know, everybody gets a Volkswagen, you know.
Yeah.
So when I compare Hitler and Trump, that's what I'm talking about, because it's not the Hitler everybody remembers. It's that Hitler that was the one that rose, the one that everybody was following. So yes, I just had to throw
you know, Hitler was Times Man of the Year for 2 years, wasn't he? At least
right.
One. Yeah. So yeah, everyone loved Hitler before they hated him. But
Right.
do you know Hitler was applying ancient sorcery? He had this thing that he would do. Do you know, like, why the judge is above you, and your teachers were above you back in the old days when they were schooling you, and why a conductor on a stage is above you, why anyone in authority, why a king or a pope stands above you? And there's a reason for this, especially when it comes to popes. Hitler always stood really, really high up in judges. If you have to look up, okay, well, let me back up. When you go to sleep at night and you lay down, when you go into REM, your eyes roll back up, okay, when you're in REM. And when that happens, about the same time, your brain releases melatonin into your system. And that brings you from a beta into a medium to a low alpha, right? And alpha into a theta eventually. Then you get your brain waves of delta when you're actually in REM. So that hormone gets put into your body and it takes you down a notch, okay? When you're going through any kind of hypnosis or hypnosis therapy, what they're doing is they will take you from, right now you and I are talking in a beta, and we're actively thinking and discussing and comparing, and right? When you go into an alpha, you're receptive. You're no longer thinking about it. You're just receiving and downloading. If you're standing there for an hour, he was known to give long, like 2-3 hour speeches, right? And if you're standing there for 2 hours looking up, your brain doesn't know that you're not sleeping. But if you're sitting there listening, and he starts out talking real quiet, and he builds everyone up slowly, and then later he's in a furor, right? Later. But in that initial time, he does the same thing that Obama would do, right? He speaks in platitudes. Hope and change. Yes, we can. Make America great again. Those things mean whatever you want them to mean. They mean whatever. And they cause your mind to let loose and become receptive. And then you're looking up for 2 hours. Your brain begins releasing melatonin, right? Or your pineal gland does. And it goes through your brain. You go down into a high alpha state. And between the linguistics and the tone that's being used through sound, and the chemical running through your brain, you are literally in an ancient state of induced hypnosis in front of an authority figure who's standing above you, telling you things. Kings would do it. The Pope would do it. Everyone would do it. And Hitler implemented the same technology, the same physiology. It was sorcery.
Without a doubt. And what we've shown here, Cory, and we're going to wrap up this first hour, is our own personal power. I think we answered our own question by pointing out the problem. As we start to relate and look at this symbolic, magical act like the Las Vegas shooting, 9/11, and numerous others that we've been looking through over the years and bringing about this occult knowledge. We're showing also that this is the power of the manifest human, that mind control doesn't simply control population, but actually manifests reality on levels that we can't even comprehend, to be able to put together such a scenario as you have described with the Las Vegas shooting could only be manifest magical powers being promoted through the processor that is humanity.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll add to that. That being said, be careful what you say to your loved ones. Speak a little kinder, speak a little softer, you know, because it's magic in the end.
absolutely. That's the key ingredient here, is recognizing that and then putting this to use. So yes, we should go out and live even though we have this knowledge, because we want to manifest that future and we want to instill it in others. We need to plant the seeds of what's going on so that people have an understanding enough to let go of the system that keeps them imprisoned. And yet at the same time, they need to learn this type of information that Cory Daniel's bringing on phoenixenigma.com to understand the true power that humanity has. And so it is both the problem and the solution all in the same boat. Well, this is definitely the story of the magic of thought resonance and how it manifests and how we are being used. And this has been an epic hour here, Cory, and I can't wait to dig in deeper with you and to get into Nipsey and the Cappy, and just see where you're at with that in the members section, because I know you're getting ready for a full release. You're getting a lot of interviews gathered together. So since we'll be in the members section, you can go ahead and talk freely and not worry about busting your cover yet.
Yeah.
So I always have to thank Steve Mercer, producer Steve at freemantv.com, for bringing me amazing people like Cory and keeping this thought resonance going in the right direction. Steve, do you know, Steve, that you're the magician behind that? I think you do. So we are here as a collective to hopefully bring information out to everyone as it's occurring, so that when it is re-scripted on the encyclopedia of humanity and rewritten into history as Wikipedia, using AI bots to define what is true and what is not, we got to remember that we were there, we lived through it, and we know where we are and what we're doing. So this is the important part of what we do, and this is why we keep platforms like phoenixenigma.com and freemantv.com going. And it is through your support that we can keep going, because all of the major players are going to shut us down and have, and it's impossible to keep a show going without some sort of income. And we are being quickly shut down on all fronts of that. And it's amazing to be able to just be turned off. So it is important that you come and support the websites. Go to the people's websites, go to phoenixenigma.com, go to freemantv.com and become a subscriber, and help support and keep this information rolling, because it's going to be re-scripted, repackaged, thrown back out the world as a magical spell to lead us into the ultimate despair of a technocratic prison that we can never escape. So I hope you guys have gained a lot from this show. I definitely have, and I'm looking forward to more on the other side.
Yeah.
Did you have something to say, Cory?
Yeah, I don't, just so people know where to find me, it is thephoenixenigma.com.
Okay.
You can type that into Google. That's my name on my website. That's my Patreon. That's my YouTube. That's my Twitter, The Phoenix Enigma. I got a big emblem of a yellow screaming phoenix there. That's my sign. All my information I put out there is free. It really is free. I believe in transparency, and I'm trading on my own. Information here that if people find it of value and they want to contribute, they can go to my Patreon and they can help me out. I got a pretty decent Patreon following now, about 58 people. It's really helped out. But as you well know, man, we don't get paid for this. We don't get paid to sit here for 10 to 12 hours a day doing this research, but it's our life. It's our mission, and we do it because we can't not do it. So Every little bit helps. It really does. I'm not begging for money, but you're not going to get this anywhere else. No one's going to be telling you this. It takes people like you and me and your other awesome guests to get out there and do this. So if you do like it, guys, whatever you can do on there, it's always appreciated.
So true, folks. So true. It's never been a time better than to be able to support one another, because minimal effort, minimum input, maximum output is another state of quantum dynamics, and that's where we're at now too. So realize